What else is going on? Psychonauts 2.
Psychonauts
I played
2.
just the tiniest smidge of this. Bacalar, how much of this have you gotten into?
I'm about 10 now, maybe 9. I really like it. We did a quick look bright and early Monday morning, and the craziest thing is, like, we were trying to encapsulate and articulate, like, what it means to theoretically be waiting 16 years for a video game to come out.
Yeah.
And the best way to process that is to not think about it. It really has no bearing on this thing. I think this game, outside of that gap of time, stands on its own, and I find it very enjoyable. I don't think parts of it have aged in a way that makes it unplayable in 2021. The thing I like the most about it is it's got its own sort of style that it is doing, and it is not really lost a lot of that in the sort of time in between, and I feel like you never know how something like that is going to go, especially with the tumultuous sort of development road that this game seemed to have to drive down. So in that regard, I was sort of like, oh wow, like this. There's no signs of sort of like wear here. Like this game feels good, and I guess, maybe I'll be totally honest. I guess I was expecting to be let down a little bit just because of
so
the
much
months,
time.
so
right?
much time. The months leading up to this release is sort of just like is it really going to stick the landing in a way? But I've found my entire playthrough to be. So I'm super into it. I've been playing it alongside my son, who just loves these characters and sees a lot of, stuff to like in that. I guess a part of me was just like, I don't know if this game's gonna be quite for you if you sit shotgun and sort of see the places that it goes, especially with that horror dentist level to start things off.
Yeah, they give you the little content warning up front that is like, oh, and by the way, the teeth stuff, and then the game just opens with a bunch of really gross teeth stuff.
Can you skip it in that case, or?
No.
I don't think you can.
Oh, okay.
They do.
That's weird. They
jump.
Warn you.
They warn you. It's not like you have a choice. So, like, you can't just like skip it or at least close your eyes and get through it. It's just it's there right away. And like the more I played it, the more I kind of forgot about the first one a lot. I sort of was just like, okay, I'm in this. The combat is sort of a big focus of the game, and does
that stay fun? Because that's kind of like, even the hour or so I played, I feel like by the end of it, I was like, not. Like the nuts and bolts of the platforming and combat, it seemed kind of plain. And then I saw reviews hit and people were like, it's so inventive and it goes so many different places. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. But like, is that from a gameplay perspective, or is it just like, this one's in a different guy's head?
Well, yeah. I mean, in terms of the variety of the things you do in each person's head, I think there's enough there that keeps me going and sort of like wonders like, oh, what the fuck are they going to do in this mind? Like, what are they going to do here? The combat, takes on its own sort of shape as you upgrade all your psi powers and you maneuver through all those intern points that you can use to upgrade all your skills. That's the thing, and I guess that's what continued to impress me with it. It was just like, this game is not tripping over itself and leaning it too far in one direction. And, I've just found it to be a really well-rounded sort of experience from, the only thing that I think I could really complain about, and I said this during the quick look, was you do get sort of handcuffed with the amount of psi abilities and only being able to bind 4 of them, and you sort of find yourself being in situations where you're like, I wish this was just a little bit more accessible. But it is not really, it has not become a sort of deal breaker in any way. And I really am digging it. There's a couple levels where you just are maybe not pointed, or your hand isn't held enough to kind of give you the right idea of what you're supposed to do. But you talk to enough people, Raz will start to speak out loud, like, oh, maybe I should try this. And for the most part, the vast majority
Why don't
of the time,
you just check out the map then, Bacalar?
Yeah, maybe the map thing is shouldn't be called a map. Maybe it should just be called like, some sort of visual representation of percentages of areas seen. It's not really a directional map. It's sort of just like a jigsaw puzzle. And if there's missing pieces in the jigsaw puzzle, that means you've left some of that area unexplored or unseen. Map, not a strong point of Psychonauts 2, but the game is so sort of abstract and free flowing that you aren't tethered to the idea of a map so much. When you revisit mined areas, you can teleport back and forth in between spots. So the backtracking doesn't really become a huge pain in the ass, and you're never sort of like, oh God, I got to go through this whole thing again. Yeah, everything feels good, man. I'm very much into it. It's really tough to find a whole lot to complain about.
It seems like the look of it really holds up. Like, applying a lot of extra, they've done Psychonauts, they did the VR thing and all that. So they've definitely like worked with higher res versions of some of those characters, but like just the look of it, the animation, like all that other stuff, like it really pops in the way, like
totally.
I don't know. It makes sense that you're playing it with your son. It's to me, it has that like almost like, could this have just been a Nickelodeon show kind of vibe or something? Like it feels like it would fit right in with some of those.
I mean, there's something amazing about, he's old enough where he just gets the general sort of story, and he could read now. So there's a lot of thought bubble, connections where he's like risk, murder, money, and you're just like, oh, okay, you're understanding a lot of it, and the idea of like possessing an NPC and looking through their cone of vision, and when they see the player just being like Raz in like a rat costume, this kid's fucking on the floor rolling, laughing his ass off. He's the funniest thing in the world. It's been super fun to have him experience that. Like I said, riding shotgun, and
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's great. And I'll say, like, the combat feels good. Like, I hear what you're saying, especially early on. You're like, oh, is this kind of 2-dimensional? Maybe it's not.
Yeah, I mean, if it really meaningfully expands, that probably addresses my issues with the early stuff, because it definitely was like, all right, I'm going around collecting these extra objects, the collectibles and all that sort of stuff, and then just kind of punching stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like the accessibility options are pretty generous too. Like if you want to hand the controller off to the kid to pilot it for a bit.
They've got the invincibility and a bunch of other stuff in there you can tweak, which seems like that seems like a great game for this sort of stuff. Like in terms of just like, hey, if you're going to let a younger person play it that might not be able to handle some of that gameplay nuance, like being able to kind of ease it up for them and for whatever reason, like that's pretty neat.
I think they got out and said ahead of time that like you can still get achievements if it's on like story mode or whatever.
Yeah, that's
cool.
the right thing to do. As someone who
agreed.
Spent a good long time caring about achievements. Like I think that's a good, valid way to handle all that stuff and locking people out of achievements because they made some of those decisions. Like I think is a really kind of gross way to go about it these days.